Nevertheless, after Absalom believed that he had won the hearts of all of Israel, he went to see his father, King David, after 4 years of being home. And he said, "Father, King David, when I was in exile in a foreign country, I promised God that if God ever restored my relationship with you, if I ever got back into your good favor, that I would go to Hebron and I would worship God with sacrifices to express my sincere gratitude for restoring my relationship with you, King David, my father. Would you grant me permission to go to Hebron and offer sacrifices of worship to God?" And his father said, "Yes, of course you may go. If you promise God, then do it." And Absalom said, "Father, may I take the 200 leaders that worship God and serve you and work with you in the kingdom? May I take them with me as a witness?" David said, "Take them with you." And so obviously Absalom worshiped God, and then he's discussed with the leaders that he should be the king and that they should overthrow David, who had become old, too old to lead. And since he had already won all their hearts after 4 years of campaigning, they all agreed. And so Absalom sent out a message across the land. When you hear the trumpet blow, you know that Absalom has been crowned king in Hebron. And the trumpets blew. Absalom was crowned king. And the messenger walked into the throne room in the palace in Jerusalem before the King David and said, "King David, as we speak, there is an army marching down from Hebron to destroy the city of Jerusalem and kill you." And David decided to flee. He went east through the Kidron Valley, up the other side of the Mount of Olives, toward the Jordan River, heading for the deep, dense forest of Ephraim to hide. And so he's walking up the Mount of Olives bare feet as a sign of mourning and weeping. And he's weeping, and his head is covered with sackcloth. And all of those that are with him are doing the same. He managed to take some of his wives with him, and he managed to take just a few of his personal guard. Maybe 1,000, 5,000 of his mighty men went with him. I'm going to pick up the story in 2 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 30 from the New Living Translation. David walked up the road that led to the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered and his feet were bare as a sign of mourning. And the people who were with him covered their heads and wept as they climbed the mountain. Skip down to 2 Samuel 16 verse 5. As David and his party passed Baharim, a man came out of the village cursing them. It was Shimei, the son of Gera, a member of King Saul's family, the previous king who tried to kill David, who hunted David like an animal for 13 years. He threw a javelin out of jealousy at David when he was 17 and tried to kill him. David fled and hid in the valleys, the mountains, the forests, the caves, and even foreign countries to get away from this King Saul with his army hunting him down. And so here is somebody who happens to be a family member of King Saul. And verse 6 says, he throws stones at King David and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded David. "Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel," he shouted at King David. "The Lord is paying you back for murdering Saul and his family." And that's not true. Just like the devil lie about you, right? say things about you that you didn't do. King Saul was killed by the Philistines in battle. Had nothing to do with David. Actually, God judged him and took his life. The Bible says that in the Old and New Testament. Now, the Lord is paying you back for murdering King Saul and his family. You stole his throne, and now the Lord is giving it to you, giving it to your son Absalom. At last, you will taste some of your own medicine, you murderer. Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Abishai's son Uriah demanded. Let me go over there and just cut his head off. One of the soldiers. And he would have done it. Those razor sharp swords would have done it. No, in one flash. Now, David says, no, don't do it. Let's go back now to Jerusalem. Absalom has arrived in the palace. And he's on the throne. And his 200 advisors are around him. And he has one man who is the most wise, most intelligent man in all of Israel right next to him. Ahithophel. Now Ahithophel was David's right-hand man for many, many years. The most intelligent man in all of Israel. And Ahithophel is actually the grandfather of Bathsheba, David's wife, whom he took from Uriah. Interesting, is it not? But now he is defected and he's now helping Absalom abandon David. Such is the influence of a deceiving spirit, family. Are you following me? The power of deception, isn't it? Then Absalom, verse 20, then Absalom, David's son, the new king of Israel, turned to Ahithophel, his advisor, and asked him, what should I do next? From that statement, it's clear that Absalom has been following the advice of Ahithophel up to this point, all right? So Ahithophel told him, go and sleep with your father's concubines, your wives, his wives. For he has left them here to keep the house. Then all Israel will know that you have insulted him beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will give you their support. So if you sleep with David's wives on the palace roof, it's going to happen right now, you'll see. Then the nation of Israel will realize you will never be able to reconcile Absalom and David. There's going to be a war to the death. Someone's going to win. And they have to decide now who is going to win, because if they side the wrong person, they're in trouble. If they side with David and Absalom wins, they dead meat. So they have to make a decision who they're going to side with, who will win this war. And it looks like Absalom will win the war. Go and sleep with your father's wives. 22. So they set up a tent on the palace roof where everyone could see it. And Absalom went into the tent and slept with his father's wives. Now, David is fleeing for his life with some of his wives and a few of his mighty men. He's walking barefoot on a rocky, rough road, weeping as he goes. And memories come flooding back of a time when he was fleeing from King Saul, from 17 to 30 years of age. Now this time, it's a lot worse, because he's not only fleeing for his life from the king now. This king happens to be his own son, not some distant person that was king, but his own son. So his own son's the king and wants to kill him. Now he also understands that the 200 leaders of Israel have abandoned him. He understands that Absalom has managed to get the entire army of Israel from the four corners of the land together to come to war against David. So the whole nation is turned against him. David has also lost the palace that he built, all the construction, all that he personally owns, is gone. He is now a poor man, cut off from any kind of financial assistance and from all that's left behind. His children, his family, turned against him. We can only imagine what David feels like at this point in time. And if you'll read the experience David had walking up the Mount of Olives, he was thinking that God might have abandoned him because he knows that he is suffering the consequences of his own wrong actions. He's reaping the harvest of what the prophet Nathan told him would come his way. And so David heads across the Jordan River out into the wilderness of Judah, the wilderness of Ephraim. And as I said, Absalom mobilized the entire army of Israel to come out. And he's got messengers informing him of what Absalom's doing. He knows that in his discouraged state and condition, feeling rejected and defeated, this is a sudden shock. I mean, he's sitting on his throne. He had no idea this was coming. The next minute, and 1 minute later, he's fleeing for his life. And so he is now in the deep, dark forest of Ephraim. He's all alone. The night is setting now. He knows tomorrow he's facing the battle of his life. He's outnumbered thousands to one. Realistically, naturally, he has no way of surviving. He's old. Maybe his mind is confused, discouraged. He's now got to gather his thoughts and gather his troops and try and design some kind of battle plan to defend their lives. And so, I guess after making some plans, he goes aside to be alone with God. We can only imagine what went through his heart and mind that night as he lay down in the forest with no blankets, no mattress, looking up at the stars, thinking, I am reaping the harvest that I sowed. Nathan told me this was coming. And I guess he's wondering about God and what God's attitude is in this situation. Because you can guarantee right now, the devil was telling him, God has forsaken you. God has abandoned you. I don't know what kind of problems you're going through right now. I don't know what problems you've been through. I don't know what challenges you're about to face in your life. I hope they're not as severe as David's problem. Because here David is, he knows that tomorrow is certain death, unless tonight he can have a God encounter that will cause God, the only person that can come to his rescue, to go into action on his behalf, because he needs supernatural deliverance. Nothing else will work, and he needs it now.
Thank you for watching Dr. Theo's YouTube channel. We will continue to offer encouraging and life-changing highlights from Dr. Theo's past, present, and future series and messages. Please take the time to like and share the videos. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.